Starting a business is fantastic and give you all those things that you aspire to, but if you get it wrong, it can go horribly wrong. Suddenly you're in big debt and it controls the rest of your life.
Richard Turner is a serial entrepreneur who has founded 4 successful organizations across 4 different industries and is the author of the best-selling book, The Essential Entrepreneur.
What so many young entrepreneurs do is actually forget about the people who are around them, supporting them. Ultimately, the divorce rate for entrepreneurs, and I've seen it firsthand, is about double the community divorce rate.
Are entrepreneurs born or made?
It's an interesting one because you hear so many different views on that. Because when you start a business, and particularly early days, you get into opportunity overload and you need to then work out which ones do I choose to do. So you need to ask yourself the question, is this opportunity going to get me to where I want to go?
Richard will teach you what it takes to start, scale, and successfully exit your business.
How important is it to be the disruptor or innovator?
People don't buy sameness. It's very hard to get attention. If you're going to do something disruptive and change the way an industry operates, give it a new name. Be the leader of that field. A lot of business books that come into the market come from the US, and the US is a very different legal system. You'll read books from the US that talk about this free-flowing model. You can't do that.
Is planning to exit something that everyone should do in business?
Even when you're starting your company, you should be looking at, well, who's out there in 5 years' time that's going to buy me out?
Are entrepreneurs born or made?
It's an interesting one because you hear so many different views on that. I think it's a bit of both. I think there's certainly a mindset for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs tend to be very focused people. And if you look at the really successful entrepreneurs around the world, they're probably somewhere on the spectrum. They are very focused people. And I think that's part of the natural ability to get stuff done and be single-minded and determined, be very dogged, because when you're disrupting or innovating an industry, you'll have all sorts of hurdles put up in front of you by people that are already in those industries to stop you from progressing what you're doing. So you've got to be very determined by nature and get past those things. But there's a point where you need to learn stuff, so your natural ability will get you so far, but then there's the fundamentals of running a business that I've found through all my businesses. And what I talk about these days is the fundamentals that you need to have in place and things you need to learn about business planning and focusing, setting your mission, your vision, your values on where you want to go, be very focused on getting there. Because when you start a business, and particularly early days, you get into opportunity overload and you get all these opportunities presented to you, and you need to then work out, well, which ones do I choose to do? And you've really got to be quite focused on saying no to a lot of things. You need to ask yourself the question, is this opportunity going to get me to where I want to go? Or if it's not, you need to be very determined and strong-willed and say, no, I won't do that because it's going to pull me off course, and I'm going to waste time and money and resources chasing something that's not going to get me to where I want to go. So understanding the function of business planning is really important, and you got to learn those skills. So in my view, it's a combination of both. Yes, there are some natural abilities, but yes, there are also things at some point you need to learn. Those business fundamentals of success and get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, so is that more maybe through younger development, whether that's impacted through schooling or through parenting and things like that as well? It's kind of like the mindset skills, the ability to be consistent, the ability to be determined and disciplined and show up and, adapt to those challenges over time is more the skills that you're probably seeing in people more consistently than you get someone out of school and they're like, they have X skill in marketing. It's like, you're going to have to develop such a broad variety of skills that one technical skill is not going to be enough. But the mindset,
I think the mindset, and it's great to see schools now actually teaching entrepreneurship and business at a younger age. Like I'm being asked to go in and talk to students in year 10 and just talk to them about the particularly innovation and disrupting industries and looking for opportunities. And that's a real skill in itself, just being innovative out there, looking at things. And I try and put it in terms where they'll understand it. I said, when you go and get a job, you should be looking at, this is not just something to earn me some money for the holidays or to buy something. You should really be analyzing that business or think about a business. And you might be working in a bakery, making coffees or whatever, but rather than just take the salary they pay you and be grateful for it, look around the business. I mean, it doesn't take much to work out. A vanilla slice might cost them $2. They're selling it for $4. How many do they sell? Look at the range of product, the pies and the pasties. Look at the drinks they sell. Work out how many they sell, and because you're there serving over the counter, you get an idea of how much they're selling, what it's costing them, what margin they're making, what their revenue might be. Look at the number of people working in the shop. How much do you think they would all be getting paid? Work out what the overhead of the shop is, what rent they would pay, what electricity they would pay. Think about the business and what profit they would actually be making as a business. And that's a real eye-opening experience for a young kid who's 15 to actually think about, so how do they make money? How could they make more money? And I encourage them to actually put ideas forward to, while you're there doing work experience or managing or working during school holidays or whatever, think about ideas that could help that business make more money. No better way to impress the manager or start getting ideas for your own business than thinking about it at that younger age.
Yeah. I think it's pretty interesting as well, because I don't know, on my social media, there's at my sort of age bracket of 24, there's such a push to be like, don't work for the man, doing all those sorts of things. But I'm like, I think it's such a narrow-minded approach in the fact of like, there's nothing wrong with being that entrepreneur as well, like the internal person, because one day you can always break away and go into something else on your own. You're developing the skills, and it's something that a lot of high-level achievers talk about. Is like you got to learn from somewhere as well. So there's nothing wrong with throwing yourself in the deep end, being that bit of an intern, and then kind of like taking those skills to doing your own thing in the future. Maybe the challenge is, how long do you let that drag out for? If you've got that mindset that you want to do something, not getting then maybe stuck in the comfort of, but this is good enough still.
Yeah. Well, I would talk to my kids, and I do all the time, and I'd suggest to them, your 20s is your time to learn. From whenever you leave school, or if you do a uni degree, your 20s is your time to maybe work for someone, learn the ideas, as I said, learn how that business operates, learn how they make money, understand the quality systems, the management systems, whatever you can learn from that business. If it's not a very well-run business, maybe look for another business to work in, because there's a lot of businesses that don't run very well or aren't managed very well. But use your 20s to learn. Your 30s and your 40s are your time that you really build your wealth, and you want to try and if you have that aspiration of having your own business, that's when you really want to be in your own business by the time you're sort of 30 odd, and use your 30s and 40s to really innovate, disrupt, change an industry, build something that's fantastic. The window of opportunity to get in and out of business is something you need to be conscious of, because the lifetime of a customer or the lifetime of a product usually is a limited life cycle. So you need to sort of plan to get in and plan to get out of a business generally. But build your wealth in your 30s and 40s, and then look to exit hopefully in your 50s. The average life cycle of a business in Australia is about 12 years. So that'll give you some idea of what to expect in terms of longevity. People always ask me now, I've just turned 60, what's your next thing? And I said, well, I don't really want to be running a business when I'm in my 70s. So I'd rather help younger people get started and run businesses. So, so that's generally the ages I would look at.
Yep. So then someone that maybe in their 20s has decided to go out on their own from day one, a little bit more, and then they're kind of sitting there going, oh shit. Don't really know what to do. Kind of just guessing. Like, is that very wise to then look at where you can find those mentors, advisors, or someone to get on board? Because while being in the deep end, and I know I've learned so much because I'm that person. I'm in my 20s. I've not really worked for anyone else ever, apart from a couple of retail jobs. Like, I've learned so much from throwing myself in the deep end, but now I'm starting to be like, I think I need some more help.
Yeah. So there's learning networks. This is really important because there's different types of learning. So there's what they call peer-to-peer networks, which is where you join a network of people like the Entrepreneurs Organization, like the Executive Hub, and other groups where you'll basically you'll break the group. So there might be in the Entrepreneurs Network in South Australia, for instance, I think there's about 80 company members. So you break those down into groups of about 8 or 10 non-competing companies, and once a month they'll have what's called a forum where your particular group, which is sort of like your unofficial board of directors, you'll sit down with a group of people who are at a similar stage in business, and you'll talk about particular issues, and it might be personal issues, because a lot of family issues happen within business as well as business issues. But you'll put an issue on the table and you go around and you literally just share your experiences on how you navigated that. And you learn so much from that. So that's peer-to-peer learning from each other who are in business, going through the same challenges as you're going through. Or there's actual learning, so there's the Australian Centre for Business Growth where I do some teaching, and we actually teach the fundamentals of how to start up, how to validate companies, how to business plan, how to scale companies, and even how to prepare for exit. So there's that actual learning, and you might do a business course at university to do that. You could do it through somewhere like the centre. You might do an MBA. There's all sorts of places you can go to learn about starting a business or growing a business. But that peer-to-peer learning where you actually get to share it with people who are going through it is incredible learning. So I'd fully recommend to get into a network. But there's networks that are there just as sales networks. You want to try and avoid those. They're there to, and they're useful. They serve a purpose. You get to meet people and you can sell to people. But the true peer-to-peer learning networks like EO, you're actually banned from selling to each other. You're not there. That's not allowed. You're there to actually share experiences and learn.
Yeah, awesome. So you've touched on winding back a little bit, disrupting, innovating, all these sort of things. When someone's first starting out, they're coming up with a product idea, maybe they've got an idea. How important is it to be the disruptor or innovator, or say some companies kind of just replicate and, market a little bit differently, or how important do you think that is? Like, you've been a bit of a disruptor yourself. And I know you've talked about how even reframing the branding or the name of your business could be the disruption.
Yes. Yeah.
Does there have to be some form of disruption, do you think, to be a successful new business?
Yes. Look, that's the way I've always succeeded and cut through the market and done things differently. So I'm very focused on innovation and disruption within industries. I just think that's the way you cut through. People don't buy sameness. It's really important to understand people, unless you're differentiated in your industry and you can cut through and do things differently, it's very hard to get attention. And the point you were alluding to, with my last company, Zen Energy, one of the things I talk about a lot is public relations or PR. And you say that to young people these days, and I say, how many of you use PR? And in the audiences I talk to, almost no one these days remembers what public relations actually is. So there's PR firms, and what their role is to tell credible stories, relate to or pass on information about you and your company to credible journalists out there. That could be influencers these days on social media, but credible people that people listen to that talk about your company. Because when you're talking about your company, it's good to hear from you, but that's just marketing. It's you talking about you, or you talking about your company. Having other people talk about your company and the innovations and the disruption you're doing brings a whole different level of credibility. But I would always say to my staff, you're all entrepreneurs. Your job is to find a better way of doing your job. So working out how to be disruptive and change an industry, to me, is so important. And another way to cut through was actually, if you're going to do something disruptive and change the way an industry operates, give it a new name. So be the leader of that field. So with Zen Energy, it started its life as Zen Home Energy Systems, and we coined the term home energy, which is quite ubiquitous these days. You hear it all the time, but we actually coined that term back in about 2006. And so we got all the journalists and the newspapers at that time to start writing stories about home energy, and they would all come back to me as the leader of this new field called home energy. So Richard Turner from Zen Home Energy Systems says this, Richard Turner says that. Suddenly I was the leader of this whole new industry called home energy, which it just separated us out from the rest of the people trying to compete. And we were doing things differently. We were innovating. We basically pioneered the use of solar panels in the country. So it was all very new at that time, even though everyone knows what that is now. But back then it was all very new, creating energy from sunlight. Yeah. It was in the realms of weird science. No one really understood it. We put together the first integrated home energy system and took it to market. And so everything was new. Everything was disruptive. We sold it through this integrated package and called it a home energy system. And then suddenly tenders came out and things for home energy.
Yeah. So in terms of that, then the disruption as well, like so you've said there's a bit of a product disruption, I guess, there in a sense as well, but also touching on the marketing and the branding disruption as well. Like you see, there's, say, let's take energy drinks for an example. Energy drinks are pretty much all the same.
Yes.
But it's the disruption in how they market, how they brand. Is that so? It doesn't have to be the product and the service necessarily itself that really changes either. There could be disruption in other aspects. Is that?
Yeah, well, the fact that they're called energy drinks, at some point in time, someone introduced and coined this new term, energy drinks, and created a whole new sector called energy drinks. And I can't remember who, it's probably V or Red Bull or whoever came out early on in that sector that launched that whole sector. Yeah, and then you've had Coca-Cola and other companies come in and join, and it's quite a large sector now, but that was pioneered by someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they cut through the whole soft drinks market. They turned it on its head, gave it a new name, and they're energy drinks.
Yeah, yeah. So then for the new company that's coming in, it's kind of like come in, if you're looking for a product or service, you've got maybe replicate, but there has to be something that is better also, as per se.
Yeah, and that could be just in the way you operate your company. So you could deliver, because you've got to look internally first at how your business operates and make sure you're actually supporting your customer and delivering the service very well, because so many companies present a new product to market and do it really well and do all their marketing really well, but when customers actually connect with the company, the actual sales operation, which is when you actually engage with the customer and take their order, that receiving of the order or the sales interface, whether that's a website or a mobile salesperson or a retail store, that whole experience can let the whole thing down. You can be really good at differentiating and getting a marketing out there and getting a product out there. But if you let it all down when people actually engage with your business, and that sales process and the delivery of the product is atrocious and the customer support's atrocious, everything's out the window. So innovation can actually come through just listening to your customers and getting that whole operational side of your business working really, really well and matching the marketing material that you're putting out there. But then, yes, there's the whole marketing side of it that needs to be differentiated as well. So innovation can happen all over it. And innovation, there's two sides to innovation that people need to be very aware of, because there's two very different types of people involved in innovation. One is the creative side of innovation, which is coming up with the new ideas and the new products, the new services, the new operational sides of your business. And then there's the implementation side. So you've got a creative mindset over here. You've got an execution mindset over here, which are very different people quite often, different parts of the brain. And, you can let great ideas down through poor execution. So you need to be very aware of both sides of innovation.
Yeah. How are you then ongoing? So you've got this, you've coined the term and you've changed to home energy solutions. How do you then continue as the company grows to maintain that innovative and disruptive mindset now that the ship's getting bigger, and the term that everyone always says, as the company grows, it gets a lot harder to do this because we've got to go through so many other people. How do you ensure that continues to happen longer on down the journey? A company like Apple, Coca-Cola, massive, but still manage to make it happen.
Yeah, it gets harder and harder for companies as they get bigger to innovate, because innovation incurs risk. And as companies get bigger and they get other investors come into the company, particularly sort of more conservative investors, larger investors, other companies coming in, the appetite for risk goes down. So innovation and entrepreneurial activity is harder and harder for those companies because they don't want to take the risk of failing in the market. So two things: either you still maintain the culture of innovation entrepreneurship. So some companies do manage to do that very well, as you've said, like Apple, etc. But probably the majority of companies then, rather than innovate themselves, and they realize that their appetite for risk is waning and they need to be able to release new product to market, they'll look for smaller startup innovative firms to buy, which is where it comes back down to we've got to have this environment of companies starting up with new disruptive ways of doing business. And that's the opportunity for the startups. They start up and they target these big companies that are not innovative anymore, look for ways to change the space they're operating in and be a target to buy, and they can get in and out of business, reasonably quickly within a few years and make an extraordinary amount of money just by innovating and changing the way and then being purchased buy one of these bigger companies that has the financial capacity.
I think a good example of that, and people would be pretty familiar with like the Waze app, the like the equivalent of Google Maps. Google bought Waze for tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think, within, like you said, under a 5-year sort of time period as well.
Yeah. And Google would be one of those companies, and Apple, you'd be surprised at the technology that Apple buy in, even though it appears as Apple doing the innovating, but they're actually buying in all this technology from startups and early stage companies that are behind the scenes doing all these changes.
And they slap the logo on, and then it's attached to the brand and how we already feel about that.
They
company.
integrate it, further development, bring it into their brand, and so it comes to the market as a new Apple product, but it's come from somewhere.
So from day one, how does someone know whether they should bootstrap or get those investors on board?
Depends on the type of business you're doing and the skill set you have, and whether you've got the skills to go on the journey. Is it a service? Is it a product? Do you need to develop technology? What's the expense required? So bootstrapping, if you can afford to do it yourself, you want to try and de-risk whatever it is you're doing. So you want to validate the market, make sure that there's a customer willing to pay the price for whatever product or service you're doing. So that's a critical stage. And then working out, how much is it going to cost me to test this product out, get it to market or service, and de-risk it, and come up with a business plan then that either you can execute on yourself with your own money, or a couple of co-founders maybe. Quite often you see 2 or 3 people get together and co-found a business, and they all put a bit of money in, or they have some family that back them and put some money in, but they find their own money. That's the bootstrapping side of it. Or you may determine that you need some extra skills, or you need some investors to come in, and then you got to determine, okay, do I need skills? Do I need an investor with skills, or do I just want the money? And so that's a smart investor versus a dumb investor, and then you work out to bring them in. But then you got to work out, well, how much of the business do I give away for how much? And that's a whole different ball game. Because quite often you ask young startups, how much money do you want to raise? And they'll say, I want to raise millions, and no, wrong answer. What you want to do is de-risk the company. You want to give away as little of the company as you can for as much as you can. And you want to only get it to the next valuation point, or the next milestone in your growth, where you've de-risked it to another extent. So next time you got to raise some money, you're giving away a lot less for a lot more. So you only take on as much as you need to get to the next milestone, where you've proven the business, you've de-risked it, and then next time you need some money, you can get a lot more money for a lot less. So just always take in as much as you need, and you've got to have a very clear use of funds for an investor's money, because people don't actually take the time to sit back and think, well, what's the investor want out of this? Well, they want to make an investment, and they want to make a return on that investment. So you need to demonstrate to them and have a use of funds that might be like a little pie diagram that says we're going to use, 20% of funds for operational improvement, 20% for technology development, 20% for new hires and people we want to put on. So the investor clearly sees how you're going to use their money to get you to this next valuation point that increases the value of the business, that increases the value of the investor's investment. So they know that their value is increasing, and at some point you'll have an opportunity to either bring in other investors that get the early investor out, and they make their return and make their money.
Yep. And then so bringing the investor on that's more from a knowledge point of view, or a skill set point of view, is you might be like, I'm great at product, no idea about marketing. So I'm going to look and find someone that's in the more marketing space. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah. Or you've got a great idea for an app or a technology, but you're not a technology person. You might be the creative person that's come up, I can see a space in the market where people need this service, but I can't develop the technology behind it. So I need a technology person. Exactly. You're just finding the skills that you don't have, and someone who agrees with you it's a great idea, understands what you're doing, understands where you're going, and yes, they might be really keen to put some money in to get it there.
And then in terms of like the equity thing, you said that's something you got to be quite careful of. Is that a very wishy-washy, depends how much money's going into how much equity someone's getting out, depends on how hands-on that person is in the business to how much equity they're going to get at the end of the day as well.
And this is where people got to be very careful about what they read, because there's a lot of our business books that come into the market come from the US, and the US is a very different legal system around startups than what we have here. So you'll see a lot of it. And this is why I wrote my book, The Essential Entrepreneur, because accounting laws, tax laws, trademark laws, business culture is very different here in Australia than it is in overseas markets. And you'll read books from the US that talk about this free-flowing shareholding model where the more you put in, the equity flows up and down. And you can't do that in Australia. The legal system doesn't allow it. You have to have set equity positions. So, but yes, the equity in a startup should reflect the effort they're putting in. And then over time, you can make changes to that. And particularly when people buy in and out of the company, you can make changes to it. But it's much more rigid and structured in Australia than what it is in overseas countries.
Yep. And so someone decides that they feel it's necessary to go down that investor route. How do they create like that bulletproof pitch for those investors? You mentioned the financials and telling them where the money goes, but what else is involved in?
Yeah. So you need to have a business plan. I mean, we should talk about this because business planning is absolutely critical, and so many early stage companies don't do that, don't do it very well. So a business plan, once you get going and you've validated that you have a customer willing to pay the price and you've got a product or a service and you've gone to market and you start selling some product, so you've got a business, the next thing is how do you grow that business and get it going? And the role of the entrepreneur changes as a business grows. So it's really important to understand. In the early stages of a company, you're doing everything and you want to control everything. But as the company grows, you've got to start putting systems in place to grow your business. You can't control everything all the time. As your company grows, you've got to put a leadership team in and start delegating authority. Otherwise, you become the bottleneck for your own growth and you'll never grow your company. So at some point, you've got to build your systems and your processes and your leadership team. But business planning is the point of saying, okay, in 3 years or 5 years, we want to be doing this revenue. We want to be making this much money. This is how we're going to do it. So what products and services are you going to sell into what markets and how are you going to do that? So you need to have the plan for how you're going to do that. And then you have to think through, so what infrastructure do I need to do that? So when I say infrastructure, what technology do you need? What people do you need? What divisions of the company? How many people? What hardware do I need? Do I need a warehouse, an office? Do I need computers? Do I need trucks? Do I need retail stores? And then how am I going to finance it? So they're the fundamental elements of a business plan. So revenue, profit, how am I going to do it? Products and services into what markets? Infrastructure and finance. So people, when we're teaching business growth, we go through an exercise often called the 10 times exercise. And these companies, it blows people's minds when they might have a company that's doing, say, $1 million revenue now. And we say, imagine your company doing $10 million revenue. And they say, I can't imagine my company doing, being 10 times the size. And we said, well, imagine it being 10 times the size in 5 years. And you do that business plan. We say, draw your company on a piece of paper in 5 years' time, revenue, profit, how you're going to, what you're selling and to whom, your infrastructure and your finance, and then step it back year 4, year 3, year 2, year 1, and to now. And then suddenly you'll see the pathway forward and you'll see how to get there. And it's not overwhelming then. And then you just got to make sure the critical plan is next year's plan because that's what's right in front of you. So you just got to make sure you execute on next year and then the year after. And no business plan is ever in stone. If you don't quite get there next year, or you might overshoot it next year, you make the relevant changes and plan for the following year. Mm. But if you do that, you can see where you're going and you can get there.
Yeah. And so this comes into playing into, I think, a quote in your book that your dad said, a good business makes money from day one, is that if you've done these things correctly, chances are you're going to be doing pretty well.
Yeah. And a good business can make money from day one. I mean, people talk about burn rates, and yes, some businesses you've got to invest money before you get a return, and then you've got to be really good at executing and planning and making sure that you don't burn money that you're never going to get back. Otherwise, you put yourself miles behind financially and you're in all sorts of trouble. So I like to think of businesses as businesses that there is a real opportunity and you can get to market quickly and far, and windows of opportunity don't stay open for long. You've got to get to market and execute really quickly and get there, and you should be able to make money pretty quickly.
Yeah. When we say windows don't stay open for too long, what's kind of a cycle that you often see? Like if someone's got a business idea and you're like, we want to try and get this, how quickly would be realistic?
Depends what it is. If it's a technology, usually technology moves quickly, and you've got a reasonably limited window, maybe 12 months or 2 years to sort of get to market, execute, and create a leading brand position in the market. And we should talk about brands, because brands are really important too. But that window of opportunity, you've got to get to market reasonably quickly, build a brand, execute well, build all the support services around it, so you actually are a company that people want to deal with, and you get fantastic testimonials and reviews, and and then you're away, and then you've got to continually improve your product or your technology, or have and grow that with your customers over time. But branding is really critical. I hear all sorts of crazy brands put forward to me, and I think, well, how is anyone ever going to find you or do business with you if they can't find you? And I always believe a good brand should talk to what you do. It should represent in some way, whether it's in the brand or in the tagline, it should say what you do. So when people search for you or look for you or hear about you, they know what you do. So my brands, Regency Food Services, which was my first company outside of our family business, was a food distribution business. It was based in Regency Park. Regency is a name that's synonymous with upscale hospitality. We had the Regency School of Hospitality just near us. It sort of just lended itself really well to what we did, and the chefs could relate to it. And so Regency Food Services. Then we went on to create a labour hire company called Regency Staffing. That brand just worked really well for us. Zen is an acronym that we used for zero energy. So it was an energy company. Zen's a massive company. It's $1 billion company now. It's like AGL and Origin, and it's leading the energy transition in the country. But Zen, the acronym for zero energy was balancing energy generation and demand in the early days. Ross Garno, who's on our board now, calls it zero emissions now, because that's our whole mission right now, is to transition the country to zero emissions. But it also has those nice Eastern connotations of wisdom, enlightenment, a new way of life, everything that you would want from a renewable energy brand. And it just works really well. So from a company that started in my kid's cubby house literally 20 years ago today, it's a $1 billion company, made more money than Origin in the first half of last year, and now building projects that will ultimately power a third of Sydney in a couple of years.
Incredible.
So it is an amazing business, but it's transitioned from being a products business, being solar and batteries in really a home energy space. Now it's sort of generating energy at a industrial scale and selling it into commercial and industrial customers around the country, but really leading that transition of the energy sector.
Yeah. So that branding nowadays, I guess, well, depending on most industries and things like that now, you're going to find on social media. So that's coming down to also, say the name is, can you get the social media handles? Can you get the domains? Can you get the trademark?
Yes.
Which, speaking from experience, is a very challenging thing as well. And also then if your product is an international product as well, becomes another layer of complicated again. But within Australia, trademarking 45 classes, how important is it that people are putting themselves in the correct classes there, and how much could that bite you on the bum?
Yeah. So in the book, I've actually written a couple of chapters on this, because it's really important, and it's quite complicated, the space. So there's trademarks where you can trademark a brand or a logo, and then there's also patents where you trademark the process behind or technology. So because you want to protect your business, the protection is very, very valuable, particularly if you have investors coming into your company, because they want to know that people can't copy your business. So with Zen, we trademarked not only the logo, but we trademarked the word Zen, which is a pretty rare thing to do. But we trademarked the word Zen in the 3 categories. So as you said correctly, there's 45 categories of trademarks, but there was only 3 categories related to energy that we needed to own at that point in time. So we took the trademarks on those 3 categories. We got the priority date in place. Because as soon as you're successful in anything, and Zen grew really quickly, like our rate of growth in the first 5 years, we went from $1 million revenue to 5 million to 20 million to 70 million. Like, it was just out of control. Wow. And if we didn't have all the quality management systems in place that we learnt from our previous businesses, there is no way we could have managed that growth. So there's another conversation in that. But in sorry, I've lost my train of thought there.
Trademarking.
Trademarking. Sorry. If when you're successful in something, you'll have everyone try and copy you. And we had all these Zen businesses around. Suddenly, we had about 20 Zen companies pop up all around the country trying to copy exactly what we were doing. And but we were able to go to our trademark attorney and send cease and desist letters to all of them and shut them down overnight, which was remarkable. So, that was something that I would strongly recommend to everyone. You know, trademark your logos, trademark whatever you can. If it's a technology you're trying to protect, get the patents in place, and just very valuable to own.
And even if someone's got a product or a service that they're considering in the future going international, should they look at trademarking internationally in the countries that they see themselves potentially being in the future, just to safety net yourself?
And there's shortcuts to doing that. There's a thing called the Madrid Protocol that automatically gives you trademark protection in about 30 countries, and you can do that for not much cost. To get the initial stages of the trademark or the patent process in place is not very expensive. Talk to a trademark attorney; they'll help you get started. And there's only a few $1,000s to get things going and get protection in place. When you get about 18 months or 2 years down the track, which gives you enough time to work out how valuable this technology or this product's going to be and how much you want to put into it, because it starts to get more expensive after that. I think with each country, it's about 12 or 15,000 to protect it after that stage, like 18 months down the track or 2 years down the track. But if it's something that's going to be a business that's worth hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, 15,000 is nothing. So to protect it, it's a hugely valuable investment.
Yeah. Now, on the day-to-days of business, you say the only way to successfully grow a business rapidly is by building systems, processes, and procedures. You've touched on that there, and you've mentioned how the growth that you had at Zen, I think annually on average over 3 years, 400+% growth. Without those processes, you wouldn't have been able to manage that. So is this down to, something new comes through your desk and you're creating a standard operating procedure for literally everything?
Yeah. Look, when I was probably your age, not much older, and we had Regency Food Services and we were growing rapidly, well, what we thought was rapidly, but it was only sort of 15, 20% per year. But we had a reasonably sized company, I think at sort of around the 25 million revenue mark. And I would have queues of people outside my door every day just, asking me, Richard, how do I do this? How do I deal with that? Someone's asking me this. And as a young person, you just didn't know any better. But being a food distribution company, the regulations were moving along quite quickly in that industry at that time. And it sort of forced us down the quality management path. And ISO 9001, that probably most people would be aware of as a quality management standard, was just coming into Australia. So with quality management systems, you can either do it internally, where you just create your own systems and processes and procedures, or you can adapt an external quality management system that's recognized globally. So ISO, the International Standards Organization's 9001 standard, is an international standard. So we decided to adopt that early, and that forced us down this road of writing job descriptions, procedures, processes for everything we did, which was a huge job. But suddenly, my brother Greg and I, we sat down and we thought, these people who are coming to us every day, that stops us from actually doing stuff that adds value to the business. We were able to say, no, you've got a procedure for that. In fact, you wrote it, so you know it, because we made all our staff write their own procedures under the templates that were required, because they know their job's the best. So write your own procedures. And if there's something new that comes up that is not addressed in the procedure, well, rewrite the procedure so it does address it. So next time it happens, you don't have to do it again. And the whole fundamental principle of quality management is continual improvement. So every time something happens that's not addressed in the processes or procedures, you write it in. So next time you know how to deal with it. And what we found is that created consistency right across our whole business. And so every time customers engaged with us, they got the same service in the same way, presented the same way. And if someone asked me these days, what's the number one key to success in business, I would say consistency. Because if you have customers coming to your company different days, getting different people and getting a whole different experience, you're not going to hang on to that customer very long. So you can be consistently good, which is fantastic. You can be consistently bad if what your customer's after is just a cheap price, they don't care about the service. That's fine. But if you're good one day and bad the next, fastest way to lose a customer. So creating consistency, and the way you create consistency is through processes, procedures, job descriptions, and making people use them and adapt to them. And it's the only way that we could have grown. So with Zen, we put all that in place in day one. So everyone, and one of the most important recruits that I made in the energy business had nothing to do with energy. He was the franchise manager for Baker's Delight nationally, and I got Wes into the business. And he would spend hours at night time role playing with all our staff that were customer facing, customer engaging staff, on the language, the conversations, how we would talk to our customers. So every conversation was consistent in the messaging and how we talked to them and the language we used. And it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that interesting as well. Like, it's like combination of in there, you've trickled in that we let our staff create those procedures as well. So you're not micromanaging or like even, managing too much. Like, it's, yes, you're kind of like, here's some guides, templates, this is kind of how we do. But at the same time, so you've got that guidance with the combination of allowing them to do what they're there to do as well.
Yeah. So practicing delegation is something that everyone needs to start thinking about and doing, but you can't delegate unless you've got something to delegate to. So you've got to have the job descriptions and the processes and procedures. But you delegate, and there's with different levels of delegation. So initially, it might be go away and do some research and bring back the research to me. Then it might be go away, do some research, come back and make a recommendation to me. Then it might be go away, do the research, come back and execute, and then let me know how you're going. So there's different levels, and you might get right down to full delegation where they have full responsibility to execute and only to let you know if things go wrong. So you got to practice those levels of delegation with the team. But the ultimate thing is that you want your staff to be able to, and particularly your leadership team, to be able to run the business without you, because that's when you can add the most value to your business, because you can then focus on what makes money without having to deal with all the operational problems.
Yeah.
And you just keep improving the business and do the things that make money.
Yeah. So it starts to allow you to work on the business, not in the business so much. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so for you, was that a challenge? Did it take that wake up call of, I'm sick of all these people coming, I'm burning my time and energy to actually realize that, okay, I need to step back. Like, and was that a challenge? I guess the term ego, challenge for you to kind of be like, okay, let's hand some of this power, I guess, into other people's hands.
Yeah. Well, it was just a learning. It was an awakening for us because we were young. We hadn't had that experience. And suddenly we were able to push back and let everyone use the handbook for running the company. It's, you could probably call it that. And it was the best thing we ever did, and just allowed us to then focus on growing the business and improving the business. And absolutely, it was the best thing we ever did.
Yeah.
And as you talked about the growth rates with Zen, I mean, Regency Food Services was probably the best learning business we could have had, because it was a very ordinary business in every sense of the way. We did some remarkable innovations within the business, but in terms of the length of the business, it was 12 years from 1987 to 1999, which is the average life of a company. The growth rate was about 15 to 20% per year, which was sort of very ordinary organic growth rate. It's what we sort of should be striving for. But we did some remarkable innovations in that business that changed the way the whole industry operated. We ended up becoming, the companies we aspired to be like when we started as young kids. We had outgrown them, very quickly. And we won the Australian Food Service Distributor of the Year in 98 and 99. We were very public about our journey, through the use of PR and the awards that we'd won. We won the South Australian Entrepreneur of the Year for that company. And when Bidvest, which is a big South African multinational company that went to the UK first and rationalised the food service industry in the UK, they bought the biggest distributors in the UK, and then came to Australia and were looking for a company to model their Australian business on. They saw us. As I said, we just won the Australian Food Service Distributor of the Year twice in a row. And they just said, that's the company. We even had the same phone number as them, just by sheer coincidence. It was 1300 Food that they had in the UK.
Yeah.
And they just saw our company and said, that's the company we want to buy. And they made it very clear, and they approached us 5 times within the year.
Wow.
And we kept saying, no, we're not ready to sell yet. And eventually they just made us a silly offer and we got out. But that's what, when I talk about being the disruptor in your industry and being very public about what the pathway you're doing and the awards you're going on and the innovations you're doing, so that the best investors you can have are people that you see that journey and fall in love with what you're doing, and they want to be part of it, and they come and approach you. I've never had to go out and pitch or approach to investors in my life. They've all come to me. Because some people say to me, I like to fly under the radar, and I say, well, that's all good until you fall off the radar. But you want to be public, and you want to get people. Better to have people chasing you down, wanting to be part of your business, than that at some stage desperately trying to find someone because you're running out of cash.
I imagine that's probably becoming a much more normalized sort of mindset now with social media. Like, you're seeing so many, even like take Mark Zuckerberg for an example. For how long with Facebook, Meta now, like, he was kind of a nobody. Everyone got to write the narrative for who this guy was.
Yeah.
Now he steps out and goes, no, I'm going to write my own narrative. I'm going to post on social media. I'm going to do interviews and PR and become the face of this company, because that now starts to be able to set the tone for what we actually do.
Yeah. And he would have key PR companies and key journalists all reinforcing what he's saying. So, he's got credible people out there that are writing the same things that he wants them to write. And yes, it'd be all, but he's setting the narrative. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, you talked about how then that led to an exit in that business. Did you plan to exit? Is planning to exit something that everyone should do in business, even if, like, maybe your goal is you're like, I don't want to exit, I don't want to sell, but you should set it up that it's a potential opportunity in the future?
Yeah. I do believe that. I think, again, the windows of opportunity aren't open forever. I mean, it depends on the business. I mean, one of the people I admire a lot and have interviewed is Simon Hague from Hague's Chocolates, and they're a 4th going into a potentially 5th generation. Wow. But it's chocolate. People love chocolate. It's an enduring product. As long as you have a great operation, and they're very focused on their operational side of delivering the chocolates through their retail stores, they have a great retail experience, and that's their focus. As long as they continue to do that. And Simon has said openly there's only so many ways you can innovate chocolate. And they've probably got most of those covered. As long as they keep delivering a high standard of quality and keep doing it, the legacy will continue to endure. So it depends on the business. If it's a legacy type business and you're doing it well, and you want to create a legacy business and pass it on the generations, the opportunity is there. But those types of businesses really are few and far between. Usually you're recognizing a need that's in the market. You're listening to the customers who are maybe getting older. Their needs are changing. The customers that are currently servicing those needs, the companies that are currently servicing those needs probably aren't doing it as well or adapting to the changing market. And suddenly there becomes a window of servicing that market better. And you get in there and you start doing that. But then that's not going to probably last forever. So you need to get in there, make a big enough nuisance of yourself. As I said before, the bigger companies that are more established, that maybe are losing touch a bit with their market or can't innovate, will then go and buy your company. So you set yourself up to be a nuisance, a disruptor, and really target yourself to be taken over. Even when you're starting your company, you should be looking, well, who's out there in 5 years' time that's going to buy me out?
Yeah.
If I make a big enough nuisance of myself in the market.
Yeah. And I guess a prime example of if you don't innovate is like a Blockbuster versus Netflix. Like it's, you end up becoming, look at them, they didn't get to sell. They had the opportunity and lots of massive offers, and they decided, no, we'll be fine. Well, not anymore.
Well, there's a lot of companies out there that have failed because they've just failed to innovate and keep up with their market. Or and if you look at Apple, Apple have gone from the iPhone 1 to we're up to iPhone 16 next. So every year, and they've got this routine every year of doing their product release, which they've just done, the new features and benefits, and they're adapting to their growing market. Yeah,
I guess it's so if you're not wanting to exit, you have to be willing to be very bullish on innovation.
Absolutely.
And continuous innovation into, now speaking of Apple, then they go, all right, well, we need to tap into this whole VR and AR sort of world that we're going into, or AI and all those sort of things is, the iPhone has stopped changing drastically compared to what it used to in the past. Like every iPhone, you're like, cool, better camera, slightly
Yes,
different this.
yes,
It's like,
I
well,
know.
clearly their attention has to start to go somewhere else because that's getting a bit stagnant.
Yeah, and it's interesting that AI, that's a generic term, they've adopted it now to become Apple Intelligence, and they've created that Apple Intelligence market now, which only they can own. So stuff that they develop within their own ecosystem, they own under their own branding now, or they've created their own sector.
Yeah. Now we touched on previously before we click record here on how entrepreneurship business, it can take a massive toll on personal life. That could be relationships, that could be friends. With your experience going through business and everything, what are some things that you advise on people that maybe you wish you had done a little bit better through that journey?
Yeah, look, it's interesting because as I've said, I've been involved in lots of peer-to-peer groups and mentored hundreds of companies through this startup and scaling and right through to exit process or investment process. But when you asked that first question about are entrepreneurs born or made, and I said, well, part of it's their mindset and their focus, which can be their greatest asset, but it can be also their greatest downfall. And because particularly when you're young and you're focused on your business and where you're going, and you've got stars in your eyes, you see that you've got the mission, you can see where you're going, you become so focused, and the blinkers are literally on, and everything is about the business and getting to where we've got to go. And what so many young entrepreneurs do is actually forget about the people who are around them, supporting them to do what they do, whether it's financially, whether it's emotionally, whatever. And ultimately, the divorce rate for entrepreneurs, and I've seen it firsthand, is about double the community divorce rate, and it's a real occupational hazard. I didn't escape it. I went through a divorce when I was younger, because of similar things, and so I just tell young people these days who are going down that journey, just always take time to take the blinkers off and just check in and make sure that everything's going well around you, and the family that's supporting you to do what you do are there and still supporting you and want to be on that journey, and that you're taking care of them. Because if you end up going through a divorce, there's years of digging yourself out of a very dark space, and also financially you become a mess as well. So it's very hard to recover from. But I remember when I go back to the Entrepreneurs Organization, my group of 8 that formed my forum group, there was a time that about 6 of us were going through divorces. It was incredible. I mean, we were great support for each other, but doesn't really help the final situation.
No, and you don't want to be in that situation.
You don't want to be in that. So if you can just be conscious of it going through the journey, and avoid those things, that's a tremendous step forward. So I talk about that. I think also in managing yourself, just taking care of your health is really important. I mean, you obviously are a personal trainer, you understand this. But a lot of people, again, get so focused on their company, they're sitting there day and night in front of a computer, or not being very mobile. That catches up with you. So you need to just be focused. I mean, I've always been focused on sport when I was young, making sure I made time for sport, doing some exercises and things in the mornings. I still, at 60 now, I'll do 50 push-ups a day. I'll do some particularly now, stretching and mobility things to keep moving as I get older. I ride an exercise bike 3 times a week. But just really important for the mind to keep your body healthy, because if you start slowing down physically, your mind, I find, and particularly getting a good night's sleep as you get older too, just getting that 7 or 8 hours sleep makes a big difference to you can be under so much pressure and stress in business, and you can wake up and you can be awake all night with anxiety and am I going to make payroll, and all these questions going through your head. You've just got to try and find a way, or learn about mind control a bit, and just shut these things out and try and get a good night's sleep. Because if you can get a good night's sleep, everything seems better in the morning. You can solve most things. You can work through, but you can't do it if you've had no sleep and you're mentally exhausted and you're anxious and you're agitated. Then you start to blame it on people around you, and everything falls apart. So if you can just focus on keeping your health, keeping a good night's sleep just makes everything better in the morning.
Yeah. And I think from, like you said, from my PT background is reframing what training is. It's like training doesn't have to be train like a bodybuilder for 2 hours a day every day. It's like, for some people, I know, obviously Toby Pierce quite well, he does gym and jiu-jitsu. Like there's different forms. It could be a social sport. It could be going for a run with friends. Like not everyone's definition of training and fitness has to be exactly the same. This is something as I've gotten a little bit wiser, the 20-year-old PT me was like, no, gym. But like it's, once you can start to reframe that a little bit and be like, hang on, we could have a balance of a few of these things as well. And it is about that because it's what's good. That training is what helps the mental health as well. So if you're constantly doing training that you really honestly hate, you're not going to be consistent with it, which is a term you've constantly said again. And so consistency in training is no different to consistency in business.
Absolutely. But that mental alertness is, just performing in meetings, being quick to think about things and responses, and especially when you're negotiating with people, it just makes so much difference to maintain a level of fitness and just living a reasonably healthy life.
Yeah. Now, rewinding a little bit to the the divorce conversation a little bit there.
Yeah.
For someone that's maybe, you're a young founder, young entrepreneur, or at a bare minimum, doesn't matter necessarily of age, but you're single and you're people starting to come into your life. Do you think part of that and some of the people you've experienced is maybe they should have had some of the conversations and maybe the person they got into a relationship with actually wasn't also suited to their lifestyle? There's the two sides of maybe that person can't just be like, just suit my lifestyle. But there is where push comes to shove being like, this is what my days are probably going to look like. Do you think you could manage that? It's like being open and honest from day one, not trying to hide that and then 3 years later be like, oops, didn't tell you, sorry.
Yeah, you really do have to be open and honest and talk through. This is what my days look like, but as you say, you've got to accommodate other people. I mean, other people in your life that maybe support you to do what you do or want to be part of doing what you're doing. You don't want to just shut them out and say, no, you can't do that. That's what I do. So you need to just have those conversations and be open and make sure everyone's on the same page. It's not easy, but it's just something you need to navigate.
Yeah. And and similar with friendships as well.
Friendships. Look, we had the conversation again before we started, but when I was young and probably about your age with Regency Foods, I mean, when it got to a reasonably sized company, none of my friends even owned a company, let alone a large company, and I was working, long hours, well into the night, because we were pushing the boundaries with technology. So computers were breaking down and things in the middle of the night, and I'd have to get up and sort these things out. And people just couldn't relate to what I was doing and why I was doing it. They were all at the pub having a great time, and I was out working. And so it ends up being, and can be, a very lonely place being a young entrepreneur, especially with a growing, demanding business. So this is, again, where peer-to-peer networking and finding your people, people that are going through those same challenges and experiences. And when I set up the Entrepreneurs Network in South Australia, so that's just celebrated its 25th anniversary. It was 1998 I set that up, so 25 years. So I was probably 35 when I set that up. But even then, it was quite a lonely place. So I recruited the first founding members and started growing that. But in that group, it was amazing when you do find people who are going through the same thing you're going through in all sorts of different industry sectors, and they relate to you and you relate to them. You suddenly find lifelong friendships, and those people have remained my friends, for all of my life, and credible people, but they just relate to you. You're thinking the same things.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because I've as someone that's probably similar age, when you were going through some of these things as well, it was like the drinking culture of the young person and things like that. Like you said, they're at the pub and you're doing this, and you can start to, even with those friends that maybe do like the drinking. What I really like to do is my friends don't ask me to go out and drink. Maybe they can, cool, you can, but they go, are we getting a coffee on a Saturday morning, going for a walk? And, so I get what
catch
I
up
get
with
is
them other ways. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I get a catch up, I get a coffee, I get a walk, and then I get to work.
Yeah.
So I can kill 3 of my daily tasks, making sure I'm catching up with people and still staying social, because it's so important for mental health. But like you said, what's the point if you're 70, 80 sitting there with all this money and there's no one there?
That's right.
It's useless. So
that's right. So there's absolutely other ways to catch up with people.
Yeah.
And do that.
Yeah. Do you think, everything we've just spoken about there, there's pros, there's cons. Is it all worth it?
Look, I think you've just got to be, and I say this, I think, on the first page of my book, starting a business is fantastic and can give you all those things that you aspire to, the excitement of having financial independence, the flexibility in your lifestyle. All these things are incredible, but if you get it wrong, it can go horribly wrong, and suddenly you're in big debt, and it controls the rest of your life, and it can be, So you want to, and that's why otherwise everyone would be in business, and it's not suited to everyone. But you've just got to give yourself the best chance of success, and which is why I wrote this book on the fundamentals and the things that doesn't matter what you do, you've got to have these things in place and be asking these questions, and this is how you give yourself the best chance of success.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it can come horribly undone. If and you might have a great idea, but if you just, as I said before, execute it very poorly, it can all come unstuck, and that's the worst thing. If you have a great idea that should succeed, then you just let yourself down. Yeah. Just through not, making yourself aware of what it takes to get a business going. Definitely should aspire to it if you want to do that. But just put the fundamentals in place. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think it's really important. Closing sort of message there is that it's not necessarily sexy. Like it's, that's what social media will have you think that,
it is hard work. Is amazing, but entrepreneurship's somehow become trendy and everyone, it's this term that everyone sort of aspires to, and wow, I want to be an entrepreneur. But there's people, you look at some of the things like Lot 14 or the incubators like Lot 14 or Think Lab or the UniSA's incubator. There's companies there that have been there for years that just can't. They've almost become professional startups, that shouldn't be there. They should have been kicked out. And I keep saying you've got to, if these companies can't get, if they've got a product or service or a window of opportunity and an idea, they should be in there, and within 12 months they should be on their way. They can't sit there forever, but some of them just like the idea of being called a startup and being an entrepreneur, but they're really not achieving anything much.
No. And I think also like in the concept of the product or service you're maybe bringing to market may not even be sexy in itself. Yeah. Like it's, arguably like, a food distributor, you go, it's not the sexiest business ever. Like it's, you're not necessarily on social media with 50 million followers like a Lamborghini might have. It's like, but business doesn't have to be sexy. There's plenty of really successful concrete businesses or all these sort of things. Like I think, I know with my generation, it's very easy to see social media and think, if it's not on social media, it doesn't exist. It's like expand your horizons a little bit. Like, you could be garbage business. It could be all these. Absolutely. There's so much money to be made out
And
there.
Some of the most traditional basic businesses are the ones that are ripe for innovation and ripe for change. And a garbage business could be just that. You just have a look at, step back, have a look at it. How could this be done better? Look at the needs of the people getting their garbage collected. I make a point of just walking down Rundle Mall and just, observing people. And I think, how many business models can I come up with today walking down Rundle Mall, just looking at people? You look at buskers and you think they've got their caps out, but no one's got any money. So who's going to put money in their cap or their guitar case or whatever? Because no one carries money anymore. They need to have a, little tap and go thing that somehow someone's managed to set up behind the scenes that carries a combined trust that owns all the money that people can have. They can have a membership card. They could maybe go and withdraw it and get their cash as soon as they finish playing. But they would make so much more money.
Just take a little 1% off the top.
And then the 1% off the top, and imagine doing that for all the buskers in Australia. But just walk down the mall and just observe people's behaviours and make it, and it's good for the brain. Just think of business models that could change. And we've got a very fast-paced, changing world at the moment, and people don't like change, but the true entrepreneurs love change. They see opportunity in all change. So the faster the world changes, the more opportunities there are out there for new business models and changes and disruptions to business models. So, but just look around and look at how many business models you can see.
Yeah, which is quite interesting. I wonder whether that taps into the timing of your business as well. It's
Absolutely.
Like, people don't like change. So if you're trying to drastically change their life, even if it's probably the most groundbreaking, amazing thing ever, people will be like, nah, I'm good. Like
Yeah.
that's too scary for me.
Yeah.
So maybe you have to chip away at it, or maybe, you know, in 12 months you bring the same product to market and bang, it takes off because
Yeah.
we've had 12 more months of slightly going into this whole AR, VR sort of world, and people get a bit more used to it. Whatever it is, like it's sometimes a too big of a jump. People are like, no, that's scary.
But you got to be passionate about it. Yeah, you can't. Otherwise, it just becomes a job, and you're not going to innovate, and you're not going to excel if you're not absolutely passionate about it. So you got to ask yourself, how am I going to change the world within this little sector that I'm focused on, and how am I going to make that aspirational to get other people want to come on the journey with me? You know, set your why statement as to, you know, why am I doing this? Why am I getting out of bed in the morning? And other people can look at that and say, wow, that's something I could get out of bed for too. I really like that, and get them on board.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I really appreciate your time, Richard. Thank you very much. For
No,
anyone
pleasure.
that's you know, young founder, startup, or wanting to get into business, Richard's book, The Essential Entrepreneur, read it myself, and personally walked away with so much value. So I highly recommend you get your hands on that as well.
No, thanks very
Excellent.
much,
Thanks,
Jonathan.
Richard. Cheers.